In the vast expanse of space, humanity had always dreamed of first contact, but no one expected it would happen like this. The massive vessel appeared without warning, materializing just beyond Mars' orbit one ordinary Tuesday morning. Its sleek, crystalline surface reflected sunlight like a diamond suspended against the black canvas of space, stretching nearly 20 kilometers from bow to stern. I remember watching the breaking news from my small apartment in Denver, coffee growing cold in my hands as every channel switched to live coverage. The ship's arrival sent waves of panic through Earth's population, but what happened next left the entire planet speechless. As head of Earth's newly formed Interstellar Relations Department, I was among the first to receive their transmission. The message was clear, concise, and utterly baffling. Greetings, humans of Earth. We represent the Galactic Empire, spanning over 10,000 civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. We have come to evaluate your species for potential membership. Simple enough, right? That's what we thought too. Our government scrambled to put their best foot forward, preparing elaborate welcomes and diplomatic presentations. The whole world held its breath, waiting for humanity's grand debut on the galactic stage. But then we learned the truth about their evaluation. They weren't impressed by our technology, our culture, or our achievements. No, they were horrified by something else entirely, something so fundamentally human that we had never even considered it remarkable. Your species, their ambassador declared during our first official meeting, exhibits behavioral patterns that violate basic imperial safety protocols. Your risk assessment capabilities and survival instincts appear to be severely compromised. They showed us footage they'd collected. Humans skydiving from the edge of space, free climbing skyscrapers, surfing tsunami waves, and exploring active volcanoes. They had documentation of our history. Pioneers crossing oceans in wooden ships, explorers venturing into unknown lands, astronauts strapping themselves to experimental rockets. This is madness, their ambassador said, mandibles clicking in distress. Your species deliberately seeks out dangerous situations for entertainment. You voluntarily expose yourselves to potential harm for what you call the thrill of it. That's when things got really interesting. The Empire didn't want to invite us to join their civilization. They wanted to quarantine us. In their eyes, we weren't just unpredictable. We were dangerous. They feared our reckless nature might inspire other species to abandon their safety protocols. The Empire's official declaration came 3 days later. Earth was to be classified as a restricted zone. No Imperial citizens would be permitted to visit our solar system without special clearance. They even posted warning beacons at the edges of our solar system. CAUTION, Class X Restricted Zone. Endemic species exhibits extreme risk-taking behavior. We thought it was a joke at first. The most powerful civilization in the known galaxy was afraid of us. Not because of our weapons or our technology, but because we invented bungee jumping and hot sauce competitions. But as I sit here in my office at the IOD staring at the latest diplomatic correspondence from the Empire, I'm starting to realize something profound. Maybe they're right to be afraid. Not because we're dangerous, but because we represent something they've lost. The drive to push boundaries, to explore the unknown, to challenge our own limits. And now we face an unprecedented challenge. How do we convince a galaxy of safety-obsessed civilizations that our madness isn't a threat, but perhaps the very thing they need? The answer to that question might just determine humanity's place in the cosmos. This is the story of how Earth became the galaxy's forbidden planet, and how we might just turn this cosmic timeout into our greatest opportunity yet. Our first real breakthrough came 6 months after the quarantine began. A small Imperial research vessel, staffed by what we'd come to know as academic rebels, requested permission to enter Earth's orbit. Their stated purpose: to study our aberrant behavioral patterns up close. What they really wanted was something entirely different. I'll never forget meeting their lead researcher, a tall, crystalline being who introduced herself as Third Seeker of Hidden Truths. She broke Imperial protocol immediately by requesting to meet in person rather than through the standard holographic interface. Her first words to me were, "Your people climb mountains for fun." The curiosity in her multifaceted eyes was impossible to miss. As we talked, it became clear that beneath the Empire's official stance of horror and concern, there was a growing underground fascination with humanity. Stories of our death-defying activities had leaked across Imperial information networks, spawning what their authorities called dangerous counterculture movements. We started sharing our history in detail, not the sanitized version we'd originally presented, but the real stories. Tales of the Wright brothers' first flights, of Edmund Hillary and Tintin Norgate scaling Everest, of the Apollo missions and the early Mars colonies. With each story, Third Seeker's crystalline form would shimmer with what I came to recognize as excitement. In the Empire, she explained, all major decisions require multiple levels of safety committees. Innovation has slowed to a crawl. We haven't had a significant technological breakthrough in over 3 centuries. She paused, her form dimming slightly. We've become so focused on preserving life that we've forgotten how to live it. That's when we began to understand the real opportunity before us. The Empire hadn't quarantined Earth because they thought we were dangerous. They'd done it because they were afraid of how appealing our way of life might be to their own people. The implications were staggering. Humanity's supposed weakness, our willingness to take risks, to push boundaries, to occasionally do things just to see if we could, might actually be our greatest strength. We weren't just some cosmic oddity to be contained. We were living proof that progress requires risk, that innovation demands courage. Through Third Seeker's research team, we learned more about the Empire's history. They'd once been explorers too, pushing the boundaries of known space. But after a series of catastrophic accidents millennia ago, they'd gradually implemented more and more safety protocols. Each new regulation seemed reasonable on its own, but together they'd created a civilization paralyzed by caution. Our video broadcasts, which somehow kept leaking past their quarantine barriers, were causing a stir. Young Imperial citizens were beginning to question the endless safety procedures. Some were even attempting to recreate human activities in secret, though their version of extreme sports mostly involved walking without protective force fields or eating non-sterilized food. But the Empire's authorities weren't taking this rebellion lightly. They strengthened the quarantine, doubled the number of warning beacons, and began broadcasting cautionary documentaries about the tragic recklessness of Earth's inhabitants. They even created a new governmental department dedicated to preventing the spread of what they termed human influence. Meanwhile, Earth's governments were divided on how to proceed. Some wanted to try conforming to imperial safety standards to gain acceptance. Others argued we should embrace our reputation and position ourselves as the galaxy's adventure tourism destination, once the quarantine was lifted, of course. As these debates raged on, Third Seeker's team made another discovery that would change everything. Hidden in ancient imperial records, they found evidence that humans might not be the only risk-taking species in the galaxy. There were others out there, quarantined like us, scattered across the stars. The discovery of other quarantined species changed everything. Third Seeker's team had identified 12 restricted zones scattered across the galaxy, each containing civilizations labeled as excessively adventurous by imperial standards. Like us, these species had been isolated for their own protection and the stability of galactic society. Using the encrypted communication channels established by Third Seeker's research vessel, we made our first contact with the Skybound, a species from the Orion Arm who'd been quarantined for their obsession with atmospheric sports. Their entire civilization had evolved around floating cities in the gas giants of their solar system. The Empire had deemed their habitat choice unnecessarily perilous. Next, we connected with the deep dwellers of Proxima Centauri, quarantined for building cities in the crushing depths of their ocean world. Their crime? Refusing to relocate to the safer surface despite imperial recommendations. As we established connections with more of these civilizations, a pattern emerged. Each species had maintained its unique spirit of adventure despite imperial pressure to conform. But it was the message from the Storm Riders of Kepler 186f that truly set our plans in motion. They had discovered a flaw in the Empire's quarantine system. The warning beacons, it turned out, weren't just for show. They were part of an integrated network that maintained the isolation barriers. If enough beacons were deactivated simultaneously, the entire quarantine system would collapse. The plan we developed was exactly the kind of reckless endeavor that had gotten us quarantined in the first place. Representatives from each restricted species would launch synchronized missions to disable their local beacons. The Empire's safety protocols never considered the possibility of multiple quarantined species working together. It was deemed too improbable given our unstable nature. The night before our coordinated strike, I stood at the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching Earth's lights twinkle below. Third Seeker, who had chosen to stay despite Imperial recall orders, stood beside me. "You understand," she said, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight, "that if we fail, the Empire will likely implement even stricter isolation protocols." I nodded, thinking about the message we'd received from the young Imperial citizens who called themselves the Risk Takers Underground. They were counting on us to succeed, to show the galaxy that progress and safety didn't have to be mutually exclusive. The next 24 hours would determine not just Earth's fate, but potentially the future of galactic society. 12 species, thousands of light years apart, preparing to act in unison. The Skybound would deploy their atmospheric gliders, the Deep Dwellers their pressure-resistant submarines, and humanity would launch our most ambitious space mission since the Mars colonization. As I gave the final authorization for Earth's part in the operation, codenamed Prometheus Protocol, warnings flashed across our screens. The Empire had detected unusual activity across multiple restricted zones. Their response ships were already mobilizing, but they were hampered by their own safety protocols. Each deployment required triple verification and full risk assessment. The question now wasn't just whether we could disable the beacons in time. It was whether our unprecedented alliance of reckless species could prove to the galaxy that true progress requires calculated risks. As our ships prepared to launch, as 12 worlds held their breath, as the Empire's bureaucracy scrambled to respond, we were about to show them exactly why humanity had survived and thrived despite countless challenges. And then the impossible happened. Just as our ships cleared Earth's atmosphere, our sensors detected massive energy signatures materializing throughout the solar system. At first, we thought it was the Empire's response fleet, but the signatures didn't match their typical patterns. These ships were different, sleeker, faster, and completely unlike anything in our intel files. Third Seeker's crystalline form pulsed with recognition. "Those are the ancient vessels," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They're supposed to be myths, relics from before the Empire's safety protocols." According to legends she'd uncovered, these ships belonged to the original Imperial exploration fleet, mothballed millennia ago when the Empire decided space exploration was too hazardous. But who was flying them? Our answer came in the form of a transmission that simultaneously reached all 12 quarantined worlds. The faces that appeared on our screens weren't the rigid, protocol-bound Imperial officials we'd come to know. These were members of the Risk Takers Underground, young Imperial citizens who'd secretly recommissioned the ancient vessels, spending years learning to operate them in hidden simulators. "We heard your plan," their leader announced, her crystalline form shimmering with an intensity I'd never seen in Imperial beings. "And we decided it was time to take a risk of our own." They had launched a simultaneous revolution within the Empire, using bureaucracy against itself. By the time the safety committees had finished debating how to respond to their actions, they'd already taken control of key Imperial facilities. But our brief moment of celebration was cut short by a chilling discovery. The Empire's quarantine system wasn't just a network of warning beacons. It was actually containing something far more dangerous. As the first beacons went dark, our sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies. The quarantine zones weren't just keeping us in. They were keeping something else out. Third Seeker's analysis confirmed our worst fears. The Empire's obsession with safety protocols hadn't started with simple bureaucratic caution. They'd encountered something during their early exploration days, something that had frightened them so badly they'd retreated into their protective shell of regulations and restrictions. Now, as our coalition of reckless species worked to break free from quarantine, we faced an impossible choice: continue with our plan and potentially expose all 12 worlds to whatever lurked beyond the barriers, or remain safely isolated, proving the Empire right about our judgment. The decision was complicated by another revelation. The risk-takers' revolution had thrown the Empire into chaos. Without the usual safety protocols in place, their worlds were completely unprepared for any external threat. The same bureaucracy that had kept them stagnant had also been protecting them. I looked at the faces on my screen: human ship captains, skybound wind riders, deep dweller navigators, and young Imperial rebels, all waiting for direction. We'd started this mission to prove that taking risks was essential for progress. Now we had to prove we could take the right risks, for the right reasons. As alarms blared across all channels, as the gravitational anomalies grew stronger, as 12 worlds and an empire in revolution held their breath, we had seconds to make a decision that would affect the fate of our entire galaxy. The choice before us would either vindicate everything humanity stood for or prove that the Empire's caution had been justified all along. And that's when the true nature of what lay beyond the barriers began to reveal itself. Beyond the failing quarantine barriers, we witnessed what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself, shimmering portals that pulsed with otherworldly energy. Through these rifts, we caught glimpses of something the Empire had discovered during their golden age of exploration: parallel dimensions where the laws of physics themselves were different, unpredictable, and wildly dangerous. The Empire hadn't just retreated from exploration. They'd sealed off these dimensional breaches, using the quarantine system as a containment field. And in their fear, they deliberately placed their problematic species, those most likely to explore and take risks, as unwitting guardians around these rifts. We weren't just imprisoned, we were the last line of defense. That's when Third Seeker made a startling connection. She'd noticed that each quarantined species had developed unique adaptations to their extreme environments. The skybound could instinctively navigate complex atmospheric patterns. The deep dwellers had an innate understanding of pressure dynamics. And humans, we had an uncanny ability to adapt to rapidly changing situations. These weren't evolutionary accidents. The Empire had chosen us specifically, placing each species near a dimensional rift that matched their particular abilities. They'd been protecting the galaxy, yes, but in their obsession with safety, they'd forgotten the most important part of their own plan. We weren't just guards, we were meant to be explorers. Working with the risk-takers' ancient vessels, we discovered that the dimensional rifts weren't a threat to be contained. They were doorways to new scientific understanding. Each quarantined species had naturally developed the exact skills needed to safely study and interact with their local rift. What the Empire saw as our reckless nature was exactly what made us perfect for this role. Humanity's drive to explore, to push boundaries, to calculate and take necessary risks. These weren't flaws, they were essential tools for understanding these dimensional phenomena. In a moment of beautiful irony, it was the Empire's own safety protocols that had nearly caused disaster. The quarantine system wasn't designed to permanently contain the rifts, only to study them. Without active exploration and adjustment, the barriers had begun to deteriorate, risking an uncontrolled dimensional cascade. The combined fleet of quarantined species and risk-takers worked together, each contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. The skybound used their atmospheric expertise to understand the rift dynamics. The deep dwellers' pressure field technology helped stabilize the breaches. Human ingenuity and adaptability proved crucial in developing new containment strategies. As we secured the last rift, something unprecedented happened. The barriers between dimensions briefly aligned, giving us a glimpse of infinite possibilities, countless versions of our galaxy where different choices had been made. In one, we saw an empire that had never retreated from exploration. In another, we witnessed a galaxy where the rifts had been allowed to expand unchecked. The Empire's young revolutionaries, witnessing this discovery, proposed a new path forward, a galactic society that balanced safety with exploration, caution with courage. The quarantined species would become teachers, helping the Empire remember how to embrace calculated risks and face the unknown. But as we celebrated our victory and new understanding, a final transmission came through the dimensional rift before it stabilized. The message was brief, encoded in a format we'd never seen before, but its implications would change everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos. It read, "Thank you for completing Phase 1 of the trial. Your galaxy is now ready for true first contact." We looked at each other, humans, skybound, deep dwellers, and former Imperials, realizing that our greatest adventure was just beginning. The mysterious message sparked intense debate across all species involved. Some saw it as a threat, others as an opportunity. But as we analyzed the dimensional data we'd collected, a beautiful truth emerged. We hadn't just been tested as individual species, but as a galactic community. Our ability to overcome prejudices, work together, and find balance between caution and courage had proven we were ready for something bigger. In the months that followed, the galaxy underwent a transformation. The Empire's rigid safety protocols evolved into practical guidelines that encouraged responsible exploration. The quarantine zones became centers of innovation, with each species sharing their unique perspectives and abilities. Earth, once labeled as dangerously reckless, was now seen as a training ground for aspiring explorers from across the galaxy. Third Seeker, who chose to establish a permanent research base on Earth, often reminded us of how far we've come. "Your mountains," she would say, watching climbers scale El Capitan. "They taught us that the view from the top is worth the challenging climb." The Empire's young generation embraced this philosophy, learning to balance risk and reward in their own ways. The Skybound opened flight schools in their floating cities, teaching Imperial citizens the joy of riding wind currents. The Deep Dwellers established research stations where scientists could safely experience the thrill of deep ocean exploration. And humans, we did what we do best. We adapted, teaching others how to push boundaries while respecting natural limits. The dimensional rifts, once feared and contained, became windows into understanding the universe's deeper mysteries. Each controlled study, each careful experiment brought us closer to comprehending the message's meaning. The combined knowledge of all species, along with the ancient technology from the Empire's exploration era, gave us tools we never imagined possible. But perhaps the most profound change was in how we viewed ourselves. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer defined by our reckless nature, but by our ability to inspire others to grow beyond their comfort zones. Our quarantine status had become a badge of honor, proof that sometimes the very traits others see as weaknesses can become your greatest strengths. As I stand here now, watching a group of young Imperial citizens taking their first skydiving lesson alongside human instructors, I can't help but smile at the sight of their crystalline forms shimmering with excitement rather than fear. Below them, in the valley, a Deep Dweller delegation is teaching pressure adaptation techniques to a mixed group of species, while nearby, skybound wind dancers perform aerial ballets that would have given Imperial safety committees heart attacks just a year ago. We still don't know what form this true first contact will take or when it will happen, but we're ready for it, not because we've eliminated risk from our lives, but because we've learned to face it together, each species contributing its own unique approach to understanding the unknown. The warning beacons at the edge of our solar system still stand, but they broadcast a different message now. Welcome to Earth, where courage meets wisdom. It's become something of a galactic tourism slogan, drawing visitors from across the stars who want to experience a taste of adventure under careful guidance. As for that final message through the rift, we keep it displayed in the new Galactic Cooperation Center in Geneva, right beneath an old Earth saying that perfectly captures what we've learned. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. Whatever comes next, whether it's dimensional beings or something even more extraordinary, we'll face it the way we've learned to face everything, with careful consideration, calculated courage, and the combined strength of all our differences. After all, that's what makes us not just human, but part of something far greater than ourselves. And somewhere out there, beyond the dimensional rifts, someone or something is watching, waiting to see what this strange collection of once quarantined species and reformed safety enthusiasts will do next.